Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and today I'm joined with Jarad Bernstein, the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. Jarad, I've known you for a while, and thank you so much for coming into the studio because I have no doubt this is an extremely difficult time for you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on. And yes, we've known each other for many years, back to the days of where bloggers used to get together on at Panera in West Des Moines. Yes. And we're both doing different things now, but still very, very connected in important ways.
What were we doing back? I was doing I don't even know what I was doing. I was doing design stuff back then. What were you up to? This was before you were the marketing guy at Drake.
Yeah, I was at Hubble Realty.
Yes. Yes, you were marketing over there, right?
Yeah, public relations.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun times, but we both moved on. I spent a dozen years at Drake, and now I get to lead the amazing organization called the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. Yeah, so obviously we don't need to even set the stage on why we're talking about this because of the atrocities in Israel and around the world, which is even, I would dare I say, more disturbing. Maybe you have a different take on that, but you certainly expect evil people to do evil things. You expect shocking news and people to do, but then what you don't expect is in your own community with people endorsing that activity. I think that's a little shocking. So we're going to get into that today. Really brief reminder, everybody. We work very hard here to get you current information and to bring you Iowans that are bringing you that information. Like it's we work pretty hard on that. So if you hear something today that you think someone else needs to hear, and I mean, just looking at the news, I can see a couple thousand people that need to hear this. Please share this show. It's very easy to share. Just search for the Iowa Podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. It's everywhere. It is literally everywhere. So make sure to share it. So Jarad, again, thank you for being in here. I think the best thing to start is what's the current status? Obviously, Hamas was this last week now. Yeah, Saturday morning.
Attacked Israel, killing thousands of civilians, not in a military attack, just killing families, women and children, civilians, as many as they possibly could, as fast as they possibly could, invading Israel. What's the current status of everything on the ground?
Yeah, so first, we have a half hour here, which is both a good amount of time and not nearly enough time to encapsulate all that is going on.
And we might go additional if we need to, if that's okay with you.
The number of stories of just immense suffering, of barbarity, but also of hope and heroism that are coming out right now are incredible. So as of this morning, more than 1,300 Israelis have been killed, including at least 220 soldiers, 22 U.S. citizens, and over 3,300 wounded. That's as a result of the attacks that you mentioned, which include more than 6,000 rockets that have been fired from mainly civilian areas in the Gaza Strip toward civilian areas in Israel. The enemy here, Hamas, is specifically targeting civilians in incredibly disgusting, barbaric ways. There's no other way to describe it. And the problem with what's going on now in the war that has started as a result, Israel must remove Hamas, must take care of the situation. But Hamas is so cynical, hiding amongst civilians. You may have seen the news last night where Israel has issued a warning to those in the northern Gaza Strip where over 1 million people live to leave the area, to go south in the Gaza Strip so that the military can come in and clear out Hamas. Hamas in response is telling the people in Gaza, don't move.
Right.
Don't move. Because they want them there as human shields.
Yes.
Disgusting.
And they want the PR. They want the optics.
Exactly.
They want to show that, look at what Israel did.
They don't care about their people.
Yeah.
Period.
And what's incredible about this, because I've been digging into this for the last week, trying to do proper research because I don't want to sound like an idiot and have information that's incorrect. What's incredible is that the lengths Israel has gone to preserve innocent life. You hear the opposite at some of these whack job protesters. But they have been calling cell phones. They've been using every piece of tech they know. They drop little mini bombs. I've heard of like little mini vibration bombs on buildings to alert civilians, hey, we're going to hit this place. You got to get out. They have all these methods to try to get the information out. And like you said, despite all these methods, Hamas says, no. You got to stay there. You got to stay there because they don't care about their own people, which is insane. I don't think that's not being reported.
Absolutely. And not every Palestinian supports Hamas.
Right.
A significant number do, and we need to hear more voices from Palestinians who are opposed to this.
Right.
Frankly, I'm not hearing them right now.
I'm not either. Yeah, it's scary. So just like the Iron Dome alone, exists because just think about it for 5 seconds, people. The Iron Dome, for those that don't know, maybe you should describe what the Iron Dome is. I kind of know what it is from a technological standpoint, but you have a more personal relationship with that device.
Yeah, well, the Iron Dome was developed thanks to assistance from the United States. In fact, the U.S. has funded this defensive system in which when short-range and medium-range rockets are fired at Israel is able to, it's almost like a modern version of the Patriot missile, if you remember from the first Gulf War, where it'll intercept the rockets coming down so that they don't hit the buildings, so that they don't hit people. And it's very effective. It's not 100% effective. And even when it is effective, shrapnel rains down and can cause injuries, but not nearly the amount of devastation that would happen if 6,000 rockets were to hit a residential area.
How often do they do this? It seems like, I don't know the frequency, but it seems like all the time the air sirens go off in Israel because Hamas has launched more random rockets at civilian areas. It seems like it happens very frequently. If you're reading the news, a lot of Israelis even have safe rooms. A lot of them have safe rooms because this is just a normal thing of life for them.
There are safe rooms everywhere. That's true to protect against these attacks. Recently, just overnight, there was a lull in the rocket fire. And there's a little bit of a debate in the intelligence community right now. Is that because Israel's response in Gaza is being successful? Or is it Hamas is trying to kind of hold back and reserve their artillery, their inventory of these rockets? So that's to be determined. But I do want to say something about those safe rooms. There's not just evidence. There are reports on American cable networks after the initial attacks. These safe rooms exist outdoors too. For instance, at bus stops or in communities, so that you can hide from rockets coming in. There were a number of incidents where people went to hide in these shelters. Hamas terrorists came in, went specifically to these shelters, and went inside and shot them up and threw grenades inside to kill the people hiding in there. Yeah. Just disgusting tactics.
Right.
It's one thing to target civilians, which is bad enough.
Right.
It's another to do the kinds of things to these civilians that you just, it's so hard to hear the reports and see the evidence of what they've been doing.
It violates war. It sounds weird, but it violates, I think it's the Geneva Convention, right? It's like, hey, if you're going to combat another army, which Hamas is a terrorist organization, but if you're going to, you have to wear proper things. You can't target civilians. You can't hide behind human shields. You can't put your artillery near hospitals and schools and mosques, right? But that's exactly what Hamas does. That's where they hide. That's where they hide their military.
That is exactly what they do.
And so you look at it from an Israel perspective, And it's like, if you're firing rockets all the time, and we can essentially are relegated and minimized to the fact that we can only defend by shooting other rockets to intercept these rockets. We have safe rooms to hide in, and we can't even attack where these rocket positions are because Hamas intentionally puts them next to schools, next to mosques, and next to like hospitals.
Let me tell
you. Am I wrong in saying this?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Let me bring this back home for a minute with a protest that we saw in Des Moines the other night.
Please.
That was specifically against, one of the things they were talking about was end funding of U.S. funding of Israel. Okay?
Yeah.
The military funding of Israel. It's money that gets spent with American companies on defense, including the Iron Dome system.
Right.
So these people who are protesting against Israel are saying, no, Israel, you should not have these defensive weapons that are only meant to defend against rocket attacks.
Right.
They're not an offensive weapon at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild to me. I don't know the full state of the Palestinian-Israel conflict, right? It's not crazy to me to understand why a certain people group would want freedom or something like that. Not crazy. What is crazy is to see the justification of killing innocent people. And I don't want to be too graphic, everyone, for listening, but I am going to say something that's a little graphic that if you have kids, you should probably cover your ears or cover their ears. But I'll give you just a second to pause this. But what is graphic is burning people alive in their houses, families, unarmed families, civilians, and chopping infants' heads off. Like that, I don't understand on what planet that's acceptable. And
as a result, you can understand why Israel's taking the actions it is right now to once and for all get rid of Hamas.
They don't have another choice. There is no other choice. But despite this, you're probably very aware of this more than I am, but there have been pro-Hamas protests. These are not Palestinian freedom protests because of some of the language people are using there. Speakers are using there. One in Philly, I think this is Philly. I don't know where all these are. Frankly, I don't care. But applause for Hamas for a job well done. Let's give applause. When they woke up in the morning, he's talking about Israelis and the Jewish people. When they woke up in the morning and they found the field hands in the house with a knife ready to cut their effing throats, I smiled. And then another quote, from another protester, every person that died yesterday was not innocent. This is... And even if you look at Hamas's, they have documentation of their structure, which is kind of weird to me, but they actually put in there that one of their objectives is to kill off and end Jewish people.
Yeah, not just Israel, Jews.
Yeah. It's and this where at these protests, where's the outcry for that?
Let me tell you, so much news coming in, so many terrible stories. But on this point of protest, I saw images last night of a protest in Washington, D.C. Where was it? Was it the Israeli consulate? No. It was outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C.
It's insane.
They're not targeting Israel. They're not upset with Israel. Of course they're upset with Israel. They're upset with Jews. They want to kill Jews.
Right.
Period. Why else would you be protesting outside the Jewish Museum?
Right.
End of story.
Yeah.
And these are Americans.
Yeah.
Thank God it's a small percentage of Americans.
Yeah, and it is... Thanks for that distinction, because it is a small percentage of nuts and evil people. Evil is definitely real.
We've always talked about the bipartisan nature of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Israel and America being linked hand in hand, a bond like no other in so many ways, from economic, cultural ties, anything you can think of. But to hear, with very few exceptions, everyone in the highest echelons of the U.S. government speak out, not just in support of the Israeli people, but forcefully, looking at all the words that President Biden has said since Saturday, looking at all the words that the Republican presidential candidates have said, looking at all the words that almost every member of Congress has said.
Yeah.
The the status of the U.S.-Israel relationship is strong.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that because Iowa is actually a very good friend to Israel, which is interesting. You shared some great factoids. But I want to be very clear with people. Like there is an interest there. Well, there are a few things. First of all, is this essentially Holocaust 2.0 denial that we're seeing form already? Because I'm starting to see narratives form like Hamas isn't actually doing this. This is all fake news. Now, keep in mind, Hamas shared these images themselves. These were not shared by the IDF. The reason we have some of these videos of insane things that a lot of social media companies are trying to take down because of the graphic nature, the reason we have this is because Hamas shared it. And we're still seeing people say, no, it's all fake. This doesn't. Are we seeing Holocaust 2.0 deniers right now?
We are seeing revisionist history being made live.
Yeah.
And I don't know what more can be shown, what more can be said. Listen to the survivor stories.
Yeah.
Okay? Listen to the stories of people who went in to rescue. These firsthand accounts are very real, very sobering, and we need to listen. You cannot turn your head away.
Right.
Without understanding the absolute barbarity of the situation, you won't understand the response from Israel.
And there was something interesting you shared with me ahead of time. It's absolutely. I think there is something in all of our heads that says eventually society gets to a point where being barbaric and acting like an animal is a thing of the past. Right? I think we look at the Nazi regime. I think we look at like Stalin. I think we look at Mao. And I think we in some ways say we have evolved enough as a human race. We are sophisticated enough and connected enough and caring enough where we don't do those things anymore. But that is absolutely not true. Clearly, you need to daily fight evil in this world. Otherwise, evil takes over. You shared this with me, which is even more chilling to what you were saying earlier. This is definitely anti-Israel, but this is many want to eradicate the Jewish people. There's no bones about it. There's no debate here. These groups themselves are saying this with their own lips. But you mentioned that there's this anti-Jewish sentiment talking about 75-year occupation. That's, as you pointed out correctly, that's 1948. What's wrong with this statement? Something is severely disturbing about this.
Yes. When you hear people say that Israel has been oppressing and occupying the Palestinian people for 75 years to 1948, that's the year that Israel as a modern state was founded. That statement right there is saying Israel should not exist.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
There's no negotiation from that point.
Right.
We used to hear...
And that's modern state, by the way, so clarify that for some people, because that's not even borders. That's recognizing Israel to exist.
Absolutely. Based on, the UN voted to birth Israel into existence.
Right.
The British left. Israel declared statehood along the borders that the UN had set out, and immediately Arab armies from 5 surrounding countries attacked.
Right.
And then borders were formed.
Yeah.
After that War of Independence.
Yeah. So it's, like I said, it's essentially that chant, that sentiment. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically a strong indication that they want the Jewish people to end, correct?
Or to at least not exist in that part of the world.
Right.
And that's our home. The Jewish people are indigenous to Israel.
Yeah, right.
Israel as a modern state.
There's a lot of history that's not deniable.
Yeah. Israel as a modern state may have been founded in 1948, but for 3,000 years, we've been praying toward Jerusalem.
Right.
You
were kicked out of Jerusalem.
There's been history over thousands of years.
Right.
But that land, that holy land, has never been, has always been part of the Jewish spirit, of the Jewish mind, and it was a modern miracle in 1948 that once again, after nearly 2,000 years, we controlled our own destiny in that space.
Yeah. So talk about the Iowa response, your friends' response. I think when things like this happen, it's so jarring and shocking to people and hard to believe, not in the sense that they don't believe it, but just hard to believe this could happen in this day and age. They don't know how to respond. They don't know what to say. So we'll talk about the Iowa response. We'll talk about the Iowa relationship. But what can people do? Are they supposed to reach out? Should they stay silent? What can, to their Jewish friends, to their Israeli friends, what are people supposed to do? What is the best practice there?
Yeah, do not stay silent. Do not stay silent. Reach out to your friends. Check in on them. Tell them that you're paying attention and that you care, and that you are there to support. And that means so much. So that's one thing you can and should do. Okay. Step 2 is paying attention. Do not turn your head away from the news.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to look at every single image that comes out. I think you might go nuts if you did.
Yeah.
But you have to have a full understanding of what's going on in right now to get the context of what will be happening. Okay. 3, if you want to support on the ground, there are direct ways that you can help the victims, that you can help rebuild, that we are, as a Jewish Federation, as a Jewish Federation system, are raising money for. Yesterday, it was announced that Jewish Federations of North America, of which we are a part, there are about 140 of us around the country, have a goal of $500 million to raise. Speaking with the co-chair of that campaign, said, we know that $500 million won't be enough, but it's a start.
Wow.
Okay. Our federation in Des Moines, from our Jewish community, anyone can donate, and we will seek donations from outside the Jewish community. But the response, from at least this perspective, has been heartening. It's been quick. And good. As of right now, we've already raised more than $400,000.
Good. And is that locally or
locally?
Locally, $400,000. Excellent. And I'll make sure we're going to hit that at the end here too, to get the website in there and everything like that. So currently, just in the metro where the studio is, Women of Achievement Bridge downtown has been lit blue for Israel. The Polk County Courthouse will be lighting up blue to support Israel. These are things you shared with me, obviously. Polk County and West Des Moines will soon pass resolutions in support of Israel. And the other announcement is the repairs to the Holocaust Memorial. Now, this has been out of commission for months. Will be done here. Is it next week, Wednesday?
Yeah, so we are in the Brady Dental Care Studio in the East Village, walking distance.
Yeah, it's true. We can walk there, yeah.
Walking distance from the Capitol, the West Terrace, where 10 years ago, almost to the date 10 years ago, we dedicated a Holocaust memorial that serves 3 purposes: to memorialize those who were murdered in the Holocaust, to honor those survivors who made their home in Iowa after the war, and to honor those Iowans who liberated concentration camps. It's my understanding that on a per capita basis, there are more Iowans in that position who liberated camps than any other state. Iowa, weather being what it is, there was the memorial itself wasn't holding up so well, and the state allocated $100,000 in last session for repairs. Those repairs have been completed. The installation is just about complete, and next week on Wednesday, we will be rededicating that important space. With Governor Reynolds in attendance and speaking.
What I think it's New York City today has mandated, I don't know exactly the terminology in law enforcement, but they've mandated all active officers to be present today and on duty for, again, I don't know who's calling for this. I think it's a leader in Iran maybe calling for this, but for a day of jihad all around the world. And so, again, it's one thing to have some conflict in another country, I'm just speaking generally, that, you know, is atrocious, but you're kind of removed from. It's quite another for that to be in our own backyard, as it was a few days ago with that protest in Coles Commons. In our own backyard, people seeing no problem locally with trying to end the Jewish people and attacking Israel, seeing no problem with that. Is there fear? Obviously for the Jewish people, I don't mean to be crass. We were talking about this earlier, but this is not your first rodeo. This has been your history for thousands of years. But is there fear even locally of being targeted? Because I can't imagine what it's like just to walk around and be a target. I don't know what it's like to live that way. Is there fear in even here in Iowa?
Security is something that we as a Jewish community in Iowa take very seriously.
Yeah.
Period. There's at our facility in Waukee, there's all kinds of measures in place, both visible and not so visible. Mm-hmm. We have support of local law enforcement, state law enforcement, national security apparatus. It's something we take seriously, and we are when something like this happens globally, we take notice and make sure that we continue to be protected. This Day of Rage that you mentioned,
Day of Rage, yeah,
is something that we are taking seriously.
Yeah.
I want to be clear. We've been advised that there are no specific threats that have been made anywhere in the U.S., including our community. That being said, we are aware. We're taking precautions as anyone would. And I know the precautions that some are taking around the country are different than here, mm-hmm. but we're taking precautions that are in line with our community.
Yeah, and obviously you don't have to speak about what those are. That's not important. It's now is a very good time to reach out to your Jewish and Israeli friends and tell them that you support them. What can I do? How can I help? And just like, I imagine that they're not going to say, yeah, could you come to my house and set up a perimeter with barbed wire? I mean, I imagine what is helpful is just to know that they're seen. Like when you're being targeted by a community, like you said, a very small group of terrorists, even some over here, just to know that you're not alone and just to know that people see you and they're ready to help in a moment's notice. I think just that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that goes a long way.
It does. And I want to point something out that you separated Jewish people from Israelis, mm-hmm. which is correct and incorrect at the same time.
Correct me.
Yeah, it's not.
Please
it's
correct
not
me.
A correction.
This is what this is for. So please correct me.
Yeah. So about 80% of Israeli citizens are Jewish.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And the rest are Arab. A mix of Arab, Druze, Bedouin, various communities. Some Christians. Okay. They are impacted too. Mm. Some of the stories of heroism that we're seeing come to the fore right now involve those communities. They consider themselves Israeli. They are just as disgusted. A large number of Arab Israeli nurses in Israeli hospitals who are, without being asked, volunteering for extra shifts, coming in when not being asked. Story that I heard from the driver of a minivan, a Bedouin man who was taking partygoers to this rave in Kibbutz Be'eri, mm-hmm. Where we saw 260 innocent civilians brutally murdered. Mm-hmm. There's more to say there. He could have just stayed at home. Okay. He went back for the people that he took there. His story of heroism of under fire, grabbing as many people as he could and getting them out of there, and telling of his other two friends, also Bedouin, also many bus drivers, did the same thing. They did not survive when they went back in. So, I want to be clear that this is this impacts all Jews around the world and impacts every single Israeli, not all of whom are Jewish.
So for those listening on the podcast later, we are live streaming this on X, and I do want to be respectful of your time. We're approaching 30 minutes. But I do, if you have a little extra time, can I ask you a few more questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so no, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people here, and obviously I appreciate the history lesson, because I think a lot of this bizarre protest behavior we're seeing is because people have been severely misinformed. And I appreciate you being extremely level-headed about this, by the way, which is unbelievable to me, how you can be so level-headed. But I think we're seeing so many people that are extremely misinformed, which is why it's very important to you don't have to share the show, that's fine, but at least share this information. Do a quick history lesson, share that with the friends that are either that believe some wacky stuff. But I want to move on to something that is absolutely fascinating you shared with me about not just the U.S. relationship with Israel. And like you said, President Biden's remarks that the U.S. will back Israel. We're here for you. That's not changing. I'm sure for the Jewish community, it's very good to hear that. For the Israeli community, it's good to hear that. But the Iowa relationship is actually quite significant. And obviously our governor just got back from Israel from a trade mission there, right?
She did. There are many areas where Iowa and Israel can collaborate that are expanding on collaboration, economic ties, cultural ties, people ties, and it's been very successful, whether it comes to ag tech, to insure tech. Sometimes people forget that Israel is an amazing modern miracle of an economy, and it's not just oranges and making desert bloom anymore. So Israel is an innovator when it comes to drip irrigation that is helping grow crops in places around the world that wouldn't otherwise be able to grow crops. Of course, the tech scene in Israel is outstanding.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. People don't know
high tech company in the U.S. has huge R&D operations in Israel. There's room for business to happen between Iowa and Israel.
And you shared this with me. Since 1996, it looks like exports are nearly at $1 billion from Iowa to Israel, which is crazy to think of. Just one state. That's crazy. One of my clients... It's not... Thank you for the distinction. Thank you for the distinction. Oh, man. People are like, make sure he says it's not pork. Oh, that's great. One of my clients is in cybersecurity and technology, and a lot of the leading innovators in cybersecurity are also out of Israel, which is crazy. One of the things you posted was absolutely fascinating. You posted on just kind of how to handle this within your own family. Again, it's traumatic news. So one thing I wanted you to talk about a little bit before we wrap up is tips for parents, which was interesting to me because, again, this is something that I don't think of immediately, but you're like, you do need to tell your kids about it. They're going to find out about it, but also there are certain ways to do it. Can you expand on this a little bit? I think this is helpful.
Yeah, sure. Why don't I kind of take a step back on that? And we are 22 years removed from 9/11.
Yeah.
And a lot of these same conversations happened 22 years ago.
It's true.
But many people in your audience, many people in general, they were not parents of young kids 22 years ago. And if they were, the kids are no longer young. And so we wanted to be a resource in particular for our own community, but this helps others as well with how do you respond as a parent? Because you listen to these stories and there's no way that you're not impacted. There's no way to fully hide your emotion on it. And kids, even little kids, pick up on this. And so it's important, for example, that you make sure that your kids understand that this is not their fault, that you're not sad because of something they did. You're sad because Israel is hurting right now. Another thing that is popping up, especially for teenagers, preteens who are on social media, and that's a whole conversation on its own, but videos and images are quite disturbing, being distributed on TikTok, on YouTube, on all kinds of places. You can't unsee that stuff.
No, you can't.
And I know every parent, I'd like to believe every parent out there has some controls over what their kids see on screens. Not always 100% successful, but now's a time to be extra cautious and take whatever steps necessary to limit that screen time, because, like I said, you can't unsee that stuff.
A lot of these social media sites do have tools to filter sensitive imagery, but at the end of the day, those tools are still run by people. And people aren't always as fast as like when Hamas started breaking all these videos onto, they flooded social media with tons of information. And I was seeing this stuff. It was not filtered at all. And I don't, at least on X, formerly known as Twitter, we're going to be saying that for a long time, I feel like. There were images popping in my feed that in X, there's a sensitive button, like this is sensitive imagery, you have to tap to show. None of that was turned on because this information was spreading so fast. So, should people, limiting screen time, you should be, I'm assuming, very aware of what your kids are looking at right now.
Yeah. And what you're looking at too.
True.
It's easy to get into that doom scrolling mode. And there's always more information out there. Some of it accurate, some of it not, but it has a very real impact on our mental health.
Yeah. And I'm not a mental health expert by any means, but I think there is a degree people should force themselves to watch some of this stuff. I don't know if you'd agree with that. Please oppose this idea if you disagree with it. But I think there is a little bit of a...
Be prepared for it.
Yeah. It kind of take your blinders off. This is very real. These aren't just news statements. There are videos of this stuff happening. Shared by Hamas, like I said. Obviously, the Israeli Defense Force has shared some videos, which were awful. But Hamas themselves has shared they're not hiding the true nature of their intent at all. You mentioned the Israeli Emergency Fund. Before we end this, can you please plug that again, tell people how they can donate, and just leave us with a reminder on how we can support our Jewish friends in this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, first and foremost, reach out to your Jewish friends. Let them know that you're paying attention, that you care. On the fundraising front, there is great need right now. Jewish Federations of North America, of which my organization is a part of, is raising significant funds to be directed toward victims, toward rebuilding infrastructure, toward organizations that are on the ground, organizations like Zaka, which goes into these areas and cleans up bodies, cleans up blood. Direct grants are being made to families of victims so that they can support themselves right now. People, thousands of people in the surrounding communities have been evacuated from their homes because it's dangerous right now. And they're living in hotels. They're living in other communities outside of that zone. And that costs money too. And so we're supporting that. Just yesterday, the initial grant to these organizations from what we have raised nationally was made in the amount of $10 million. And so that those funds are already being put to use. A lot more funds are needed and will be put to use to help with that effort. If you're able, whether it's a donation of $18, which has significance in Judaism of meaning life, or thousands of dollars, you can go to jewishdesmoines.org. There's a link on the homepage to what's going on in Israel right now, and there's you can donate with a credit card.
And for all those listening, I know a lot of our listeners listen when they're in the field, they listen when they're driving, they listen on their commute, they listen when they're flying. Wherever you are, We will put all of those links at iowapodcast.com. It'll be very easy to find. If you check this within about a week of publishing, it'll be on the homepage right there at the top. If you don't, if you check later, I think we're just going to put that at iowapodcast.com/Jarad, if you don't mind. Sure. Can we do that? Easy to find. Jarad, for those that don't know. iowapodcast.com/Jarad. We'll make sure to put it there so it's easy to find. Even when it's not on the top page, I want to make sure people can get right to it. Jarad Bernstein, Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. Please plug the website one more time, please.
Yeah, jewishdesmoines.org. And we'll be posting updates there, jewishdesmoines.org.
Excellent. And thank you for giving me your time. I know this is a very hard time on you, on your family, especially on the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. Coming in here and giving an interview has got to be very difficult. So thank you for the strength, and thank you for making time for the Iowa Podcast family.
Thank you for having me, and for the listeners to giving their time to hearing what's going on.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.